Hi everyone, welcome to the July 31st workshop, Hydroponics 2. This is a continuation by the Prince William Master Gardeners. We held our Hydroponics 1 workshop a couple months back. If you want to review that video will be on the Manassas Park City Library YouTube page. I am Casey Hummeldorf. I'm the Girl Scout who's been setting up these workshops, getting this gardening information out to all you guys. I've had the honor of working with the Manassas Park City Library and the Prince William Master Gardeners to help just get this project going, get this information out to you guys, get the free seeds out to you guys. And on the topic of free seeds, Valerie, would you care to?
Sure. So, hi, my name is Valerie. I work at the Manassas Park City Library. We are pretty new. We're located at Blooms Park. And because of our position, we get a lot of nature lovers by walking the trail. So when Casey approached us with her project idea, we were thrilled to work with her. She's been hosting these gardening workshops and has also installed a free seed library outside of the library. So it's a leave a seed, take a seed box that's open anytime. So we definitely recommend checking it out. And with today's video in the description box below when we post it, I'll include a link to our previous hydroponics workshops video. I think that came out right. And so I'll include that in the description box below, as well as information about the seed exchange box that we have going on. And so I'll include all of that in the description box with today's video.
Okay, and guys, the Manassas Park City Library is close to celebrating their 1-year anniversary, so I highly suggest you going, checking out the seed library, going to check out the actual library, and maybe getting yourself a library card there. The staff there is amazing, and it's just been an honor working with them. So, overview of the workshop and rules today. Introductions already done. Watch the Hydroponics 2 video provided by the VCE Master Gardeners. Now that's going to take around 30-ish minutes. Our add-ons, final remarks, and announcements, around 15 to 20-ish minutes, give or take. And then our Q&A and closing, going to be around 5 minutes. Rules and discussions. Please keep muted during the video and put any questions, comments, remarks in the chat. I love to see the chat being busy. No spamming in the chat. I know that's a weird rule, but I've worked with little kids before during these Zoom workshops, and they love to just chat. They love to just spam in the chat. So it's kind of an overarching rule that I say. And then the sessions will be recorded and uploaded onto the Manassas Park City Library YouTube page. If you don't feel comfortable with being recorded, you are free to leave right now. We are so thankful that you even just showed up, and we will let you know when that video is going to be posted. So, Hydroponics 2. Again, the video was provided The video was provided by the Prince William Master Gardeners. I'm so grateful for them just like helping me and giving me these videos to show you guys. And so yeah, Valerie, if you could give me a sign if my audio is not working.
Good morning, everyone. It's 11 o'clock and we're going to get started with this week's class. This week's class is on hydroponics, some simple options for the beginner. This is the second of our hydroponic series. Just a reminder, if you could put your questions in the chat box as we go along, we'll answer those at the end. So let's get started. So last time we talked about, what is hydroponics, and it's basically growing plants without soil. It's usually done in greenhouse situations, but it can be done at home with grow lights. And technically it can be done outside as well. There are lots of advantages and disadvantages to growing hydroponically. Generally speaking, with hydroponics, we get higher yields, we get a cleaner product, we can do it in a small space, we have more control. The disadvantage, though, is that there's more management involved, and depending on what system you're doing, the technical learning curve can be pretty steep. And the capital investment can be pretty steep, depending on what type of system you decide to go with. Today, we're going to focus on more low-tech ways to get into hydroponics, to figure out if this is something you really want to do without the big investment. So hydroponics has closed systems and then it has open systems, and the open or drain to waste systems are probably our least efficient when we're talking about hydroponics and water. It's the most labor intensive. The picture here is cherry tomatoes being grown in grow bags, and it's being fed by drip irrigation. You can see with the arrows, the main line comes here, sprout goes in there, and then all the water drains out the bottom of the bag. It's a pretty complex system, but it can be done at home, and in fact, many of you are probably doing it at home already. The simplest drain to waste system is container gardening, because you're using nutrients and water and you're applying it to a plant growing in a media, and the water's not recovered. So if you're growing in pots, you're already doing hydroponics. You've made the first step. But again, this is kind of labor intensive, and it's not an efficient use of water. Another way to get started in hydroponics is to deal with sprouts and microgreens. It's important, if you're doing this though, to use seeds that are produced for sprouting. There are a couple of diseases that may be on seeds that you just get. The seeds produced for sprouting are sterilized. The other ones may not be. And never use a treated seed. Most of the time, treated seeds are seeds that have an antifungal on them. So if we look at the difference between sprouts and microgreens, sprouts are the first stage of development of a plant, and it's harvested at a few days to about when they get their first true leaves. And you can eat the entire plant. Microgreens are the second stage of development, and we harvest about 1 to 2 weeks after they get their true leaves. Sprouts are really simple. You need a tray or a jar. You need some cheesecloth and a rubber band that you can put around the neck of your jar to hold the cheesecloth, and a drainage rack. And then you're rinsing daily, getting these seeds to sprout. Microgreens, on the other hand, are a little more complex because it needs some sort of growing media. Most of the time we're talking about using a shallow tray with a grow light. You're watering from the bottom. In this particular system, you don't want to eat the roots, you only eat the shoots and leaves. When we're harvesting microgreens, we're using clean scissors, and then we discard or compost the roots and the growth media. There are lots of things that are commonly used for microgreens, depending on what your pleasure is. Some of these you wouldn't think of. I certainly didn't think of sunflower until somebody brought sunflower microgreens to a meeting I was at. They're quite good, actually, but there are lots of different varieties to choose from, and they're a good, nutritious addition to salads, or you could just eat them. The next kind of simple step is is a non-circulating deep water system, which is sometimes referred to as the Kratky method, which is named after a University of Hawaii Extension professor. In smaller home systems, it's usually a fill it and forget it in terms of having to deal with nutrients and water, and I'll show you why in a minute. You can use containers that have lids or that have styrofoam floats that cover the entire surface area of the top of the container you're using. This allows for deeper roots, and if you're going to reuse them, you should sterilize them with a mild bleach solution in between uses. So how does this work? Well, depending on the plant, you might need a growth support, but you've got a net pot cut into the lid. You've got some sort of growing media in that net pot. You've got a container that's got nutrient solution in it. So this is the basic setup. Then what makes this nice for the home grower is that you start with a full bucket of nutrient solution, and as time goes by, that bucket slowly empties as the plant starts to grow. And so by the time that you're ready to harvest, you should have very little nutrient solution left. What this does is it allows the roots to continue growing and stay moist and not dry out. And it really is simple. There's not a whole lot of reason to fool with it other than, you know, checking on the plant itself. So I'm going to show you a video about how you can set up a simple bucket system like that. Hannah Wooten in Florida has done this demonstration, and so let me change what I'm sharing. Okay, let's try this.
Hydroponics can be a great, easy, and affordable way to grow your own food. Today, I'm going to show you how you can grow great-looking lettuce just like this hydroponically at your own home. All you have to do is set it and forget it. The first step for growing your hydroponic lettuce is going to be starting your seeds. Here, we're going to be using these Oasis grow cubes to get these seeds started. You're going to start by soaking those grow cubes in water and getting them completely saturated, just like this. Once your grow cubes are completely saturated, you can remove them and prepare them for planting with seeds. Today, we're going to be using green butter bib lettuce. These are pelleted lettuce seeds, which just makes handling a little bit easier. And with fresh seeds, you can just place one seed per cube. But if your seeds are a little bit older, it might be a good idea to place 2 per hole. Now that we've planted our seeds, they're going to be ready to germinate. So you're going to put them back into a container. We're going to reduce the amount of water in that container because we don't want the seeds to be completely flooded. But we do want them to have some water and some high humidity in there. So you can place those seeds in the container, cover it to keep that humidity high, and we're going to wait about 2 to 3 weeks while these seeds turn into little baby seedlings, where we will then transplant them into our buckets. While your seeds are in germination, you're going to have a little bit of prep to do. So right now, we are going to drill some holes in our 5-gallon bucket. We are using a power drill with a 2-inch hole saw drill bit to drill out the holes in the lid of our bucket. We're going to be drilling out 3 holes today so we can plant 3 heads of lettuce. It's good to stabilize the bucket and stabilize the drill using a little bit of pressure here. Just like that. When your lettuce seedlings are ready, it's going to be time for you to make your nutrient solution. There are going to be a few steps involved in making a proper nutrient solution for your lettuce. First, you're going to fill up your 5-gallon bucket with water, almost to the top, but not quite. You want to leave about 1 inch of space. That's going to provide the air which is necessary for your lettuce roots to grow successfully. In order to make a proper nutrient solution, we need to add nutrients to the water because that's how the plant can have a healthy, balanced diet. But we also need to balance the pH or the acidity of that nutrient solution so the plants are able to access those essential nutrients. These are some fancy meters that you can buy to measure your pH and the amount of nutrients in your hydroponic solution. But today, I'm going to teach you how to make those measurements with teaspoons and with very affordable pH strips. It's a good idea to go ahead and test the level of your pH first so you know where you're starting. We're going to use these very affordable pH indicator strips where you just put it in the water, lay it to compare the color, and you can see we have a pH of about 7 right now. That's neutral. We want a pH that's in the range of about 5.5 to 6. So now we're going to add our nutrients. The nutrients are going to help to lower the pH a little bit. Then we're going to add our vinegar to drop the pH to our desired range of 5.5 to 6. So we're going to start by adding 5 teaspoons of the nutrients. And now we're going to add 10 teaspoons of the vinegar. This is white distilled vinegar. Now I'm just going to give it a quick stir to evenly distribute the nutrients and that acidic vinegar throughout the solution. Now let's see what our pH looks like. Looks like we're right there between 5 and 6. Now that our nutrient solution has been pH balanced with our nutrients added, it's going to be time for us to place our seedlings, which are now about 2 to 3 weeks old. Now we're going to take that lid that we drilled those 3 holes in with the 2-inch hole saw, and we're going to place it on the top of our bucket. And we are going to take these 2-inch net cups to place in these 2-inch holes. You can see that the water level is up about halfway on these net cups. That's important so that our seedlings can remain in contact with the nutrient solution so that they can get off to a good, healthy start in this bucket. Now we're going to take these seedlings. You can see they're already rooting out here, and we're going to place them right here into our nutrient solution. At this point, your lettuce is going to be ready to set outside in a sunny location in the whatever months are your lettuce growing season. Here in Florida, that's going to be in the fall, the winter, and the beginning of the spring, where your lettuce can grow happily and healthily outside. Your lettuce is going to be growing outside for about another 3, maybe 4 weeks, and then your lettuce is going to look like these examples over here. Now, the real trick with the success of set it and forget it lettuce is that those seedlings that you started over here are going to push their little roots right down into the water and nutrients. And while your plant is actively growing and taking up that water and nutrients, that water level is going down. So you really can just set it and forget it. Now your set it and forget it lettuce is going to be ready to harvest. But don't forget to harvest it. I know your lettuce looks very beautiful and it's tempting to want to just show it off to everyone. But now you're going to want to harvest your lettuce so that you can enjoy what you've grown over the last few weeks. So here we're just going to take some scissors. We're going to harvest this whole entire head today, and we're just going to cut at the base of the lettuce plant. We're going to move that lettuce right here to a bowl where it's ready for dressing. I hope you found the set it and forget it hydroponic method to be an easy, affordable, successful, and delicious way to grow your own food. I'm Hannah Wooten with the University of Florida IFAS Extension in Seminole County. If you would like some more information, please feel free to reach out. Thanks and have a great day.
So you can see from Hannah's demonstration, it's a very simple way to get started, and it's fairly easy. It's fairly inexpensive to get into, and this is just one more way to start doing hydroponics. So one other way that you might think about is a wick system. Wick systems are basically, they kind of look like just a regular container, but they have these reservoirs in the bottom. And depending on what type of system you're using, it could have a basket area at the bottom where that's filled with media that allows it to draw up into the potting mix. It may be something like this very simple one that we sometimes use for kids in schools, where you've got wicking material that's in the nutrient solution, and it slowly comes up as the plant needs it. There are lots of different ways to do this. The pots are fairly expensive, especially if you buy the larger ones, but it's a simple way to do almost drain to waste, but have a lot less water waste. It's still going to require a little bit of management because you're still going to need to make sure that the water reservoir is at a good level. Sometimes adding an air stone into that reservoir can be helpful, but if you've got your air gap, a lot of times that's not needed. So NFT, or nutrient film technique, is about as complex as we're going to go for today. This is really common in greens productions, and basically you're pumping nutrient solution into the root zone. And plants are either held in tubes or channels, or they're in media beds. And the way it works, and filters aren't necessary in all systems, but the way it works is you've got your reservoir with nutrient solution, gets pumped up. In this case, it's going through pipes that have net cut cups in them and being returned. In the case of a media bed, the water would come up, go through the media bed, and go and return. It's a very simple system schematically, but it can get complex. So if we look at this hydroponic frame, and this is a common way to do hydroponics with NFT, you've got a pump and a reservoir over here in the back. It gets pumped to each of these tubes. The water runs through, comes down, collected in a central channel, goes back into the reservoir, and gets pumped up again. As Hannah mentioned, it's important to have the pH right. And when you really get into hydroponics, you're going to want to focus on electroconductivity and pH. And electroconductivity is just a measure of the ions in the water from your inorganic materials, which is your fertilizer and dissolved salts. And pH, as Hannah mentioned, is a determination of how acidic the water is. It's measuring free hydrogen ions in the water, but the important thing is it tells us how acidic or basic the water is. And the ideal varies by species. For example, for cucumbers, your electroconductivity ideal is 2,500. For lettuce, it's only 1,700. But usually you want to keep your electroconductivity between 1,500 and 2,500, and a pH. Hannah had it at 5, but generally 5.5, 6 is probably the sweet spot. But 5.5 to about 6.5 for most plants is where you want to be. If the electroconductivity is off, it means your nutrient solution is too weak and you need to add more nutrient system. If the pH is off, then you can't, or the plants can't uptake the water or uptake the nutrients in the water. If you go excessively crazy with your electroconductivity, you end up having a salt buildup, and that can harm or kill your plants. That's more of a problem in industrial hydroponics than it is home hydroponics. And when we're thinking about hydroponics, we want to look at suitable seed. You want seed that's recommended for hydroponics or in container growing, which, as we've discovered, is really hydroponics. These are generally short, compact versions of those particular vegetables. Some seed companies will allow you to search for hydroponic varieties or container growing varieties on their website. As Hannah showed you, pelleted seeds are really nice for small seed. And basically what they've done is they've taken the seed and they've coated it in clay. But it's a permeable clay so that the seed gets water and the clay eventually goes, dissolves away. It's really handy for handling those small seeds. I have some examples here of some recommended varieties. There are more than this, but these are just some ones I picked up. And there are lots of varieties and lots of different types of plants that we can grow hydroponically. The easiest is lettuce and other greens. With cucumbers and tomatoes, you're going to need some sort of support system. Eggplant, if you get these compact varieties, generally you don't need a whole lot of support, but you may need some support. But I urge you, do your research and make an intelligent choice. I mean, the last thing you want to do is put the wrong species in and not be able to control it or have it collapse on you. Whoops. So these are just a couple of seed sources. There are lots of different seed sources, but Paramount and Johnny's Select, I know both have hydroponic specific varieties. There are other seed companies that do. These are just two that I know about. And these seed companies can be really helpful. If you're not sure if it's good for hydroponics, you can always call the seed company on their customer service line and get a better understanding of how the plant grows or how that variety grows. When you're choosing your fertilizer or your nutrient solution, you need to do your research ahead of time. Some plants have nutrient needs that change over time. Tomatoes are a good example of that. The companies that sell hydroponic nutrient solution can recommend specific products for the plant you're trying to grow. The less intensive you're producing, the more flexibility you have with the product you choose. There are organic options available, but they don't always cover the needs of every species you're going to grow. So again, it's important to do your research. There's also some food safety considerations that you have to keep in mind. Sprouts are considered a high-risk food for food safety. A lot of that has to do with not using the right seed, the seed that's specifically for sprouting. The other problem is that you have temperature and moisture is nice for sprouting, but it's also nice for microorganism growth. The seed could be contaminated, as I mentioned. The container can be contaminated. Most of our foodborne illnesses, over 50%, have been traced back to somebody not washing their hands and introducing some sort of pathogen. So just be mindful of that. Also harvest your crops so the solution doesn't splash onto the produce. And cool your harvest promptly, especially if you've got it in a high heat situation. You want to get your produce in a cooler area, and that could just be a tub of water, or that could be taking it inside where it's nice and cool in the air conditioning. So we have some book resources for you. We have lots of online resources for you. Most of these are from our fellow extension folks. This, if you want to see Hannah's video again, this, you can find it on this blog in particular, the Set It and Forget It Hydroponics. Some of these these two give you good references for EC and pH. This one from Cornell is good about making a recipe, a nutrient recipe for you. There's way more information than you probably want or need in these, but there's good basic information in there as well. And these are some suppliers that specialize in hydroponics. And lastly, do we have any questions?
So how can you?
Okay, don't know why I didn't stop, but oh well. So nope. If you have questions, you can put them in the chat now. We will be going over them during the Q&A session. But I do have add-ons. So hydroponic vegetables. Again, the video didn't really talk a lot about the kind of food that you can grow. Sure, it talked about lettuce, but you can also grow stuff like tomatoes, little cucumbers, spinach, celery, bok choy. You can also grow hydroponic herbs, peppermint, rosemary, sage, basil, really anything that just sprouts up. And the same can be said about houseplants. Now, hydroponic houseplants are absolutely beautiful. Peace lilies, spider plants, Chinese evergreens. Really, again, anything that sprouts up and not in ground just can be grown hydroponically. But what about the vegetables that sprout in ground? Now, most people do hydroponic gardening because it's an eco-friendly alternative it's an eco-friendly, non-dirty alternative to just digging in the ground and placing your seeds in the ground. But what about potatoes, carrots? Again, root vegetables. What if you don't have any anywhere to like actually plant them or have any garden? Well, you can buy grow bags, and they're cheap, easy, and porch friendly alternatives to this. They do come pretty cheaply. On your screen, I have price variations between Amazon, Home Depot, and Walmart. So it's really just a matter of shopping around. But you can buy sets of these grow bags very, very cheaply. And some hold up to 10 gallons worth of dirt. So they're very cheap, very effective. So another thing that they didn't mention in the video is problems you might have while hydroponically gardening. Three of the main things I want to talk about are humidity problems, algae problems, and proper lighting. So with humidity humidity, especially with hydroponic plants, can lead to mold and growth spores within the roots of the plant. The best way to prevent this is to either get a dehumidifier in your home or crack open a window. If you do have one in your plant room, it's really just a matter of trying to not keep the place too humid once your roots start sprouting. With algae, now algae is one of the biggest worries that any aquatic related thing has. Fish, having fish as a pet, hydroponically gardening, anything with water, algae is going to be a bit of a problem. The reason why algae is such a big problem when it comes to hydroponic gardening is it could result in oxygen depletion and pH imbalance, which you definitely don't want for your gardening, especially the pH imbalancing, because that can cause plants to die without you knowing, because some plants are very finicky and have to have that perfect pH. One of the biggest things you can do to prevent the growth of algae or stop the growth if it's already happened is to make sure your plants are sufficiently covered. So as you saw in the video about starting to hydroponically grow lettuce, the set and forget method, they did it in a 5-gallon bucket, and they made sure to do it. They made sure to do the 5-gallon bucket. They made sure the 5-gallon bucket had a top that they drilled the holes in to put the vegetable sprouts. Now, the reason that they had the top is to make sure that the light didn't get in for the algae to take form and reproduce. If your plants are covered, it will kill off and prevent any further growth of any algae. And that's another reason why you want to periodically check your plants, check your water buckets, make sure there isn't any growth or any mold. Now, another big thing that people might not think about is the lighting. Now, lighting both have their pros and cons. Natural outdoor lighting, it's natural, you don't need to worry about it if you set it outside. The only problem is I have some plants that are hydroponically growing outside, and one of the biggest things with having it naturally outdoor is if you do the set and forget method, or really if you have any plants outside in a container, you're going to need to bring them in when there's possible storms or it gets too hot that it might kill off the plant. Now, natural indoor lighting. Now, again, this has its own pros and cons. You don't need to worry about bringing plants in if there's a storm outside, but you do need to worry about the amount of lighting the plant can get. An insufficiently lit room can cause the plants to shrivel up and die. So yeah, you just want to make sure you have enough lighting in a certain room to have indoor lighting. But then there's also the artificial greenhouse lights. These you can control how much light the plants are getting. The only con that I can think of off the top of my head is that it will go towards your energy bill, whereas the other two are just natural. You don't need to pay anything for it. You can just set your plants there. Most people use LED lights. You can also use a greenhouse light. And yeah, you're also going to need to pay for the greenhouse light, obviously. So that's the 3 different types of lighting. That's the off the top of my head, the pros and cons of them. And yeah. And with it being 1:44, we're gonna do Q&A and closing. We don't have, Valerie, do you know if we have any of the recyclable gardening kits left?
I believe we have one left.
Okay, guys, so we have one recyclable gardening kit left. I didn't put that in the announcements because, again, there's only one left. It's first come, first serve. You can always ask Valerie or whoever's at the front desk where it is if you can get it. It does contain half enough dirt to make half a gallon of it. Flyers for our upcoming classes, instructions on how to make recyclable little pots, as well as 3 toilet paper rolls and 3 milk cartons. And Valerie, if you had any other announcements, you can go ahead and take the floor.
I don't think I have anything off the top of my head, but we can stick around for a little bit longer.
Okay. So I'm going to be monitoring chat. Again, thank you guys all for coming to our 11th gardening workshop. Our next workshop is going to be fall vegetable gardening, and that is going to be August 14th. We are opening up questions now. Feel free to put any questions or comments in the chat. Any questions that we can't answer, you can always ask the Master Gardener Horticultural Help Desk, and the email is provided on screen now.